All right, so now that we have finished modeling all our props, we're going to get them prepared for real world use in our actual projects. So what I did, I created this folder, I named it final, and I put all the props inside here, all our finished model props. All right. To get it ready for real world use, what we're going to do is move all of the object's origin point, this yellow dot, orange dot, to the 3D cursor. That's the first thing we're going to do. And then we're going to scale them correctly, which means we will be working in the correct dimensions. I'll show you what I mean in a little bit. But first of all, let's move the object's origin to the 3D cursor. I believe we did that in previous videos. Nevertheless, let me show you still. It's simple. You simply right click and you set the origin to the 3D cursor. And that's what we're going to do for all the objects. So let me show you another example. Let me turn off and turn on this one. It's here. The object's origin is here. Now, while it is that is sitting on the floor, so to speak, the origin, it determines like where in 3D space this is. So if it is I go here in the object properties, you'll notice that the location is at 1 meter. If I press 1 for front view, you'll notice that that is what it is. This here, this block represents 1 meter, 1 meter, 2 meters, 3 meters. And it's saying really that this object is 1 meter in the z-axis. So although it's sitting on the floor, because the object's origin is up here, that is telling us that the object is 1 meter in the z-axis. So, and you may be tempted to move this, but the whole thing will move, which is why we have to right click and set the origin to 3D cursor. All right, so we're going to do that for all of them, and then I'll come back. You may have noticed while doing that exercise that some of the origin points are an extreme size of the object. So although that we might press right click, set origin to 3D cursor, it's still on that side. So to fix that, if we want it in the middle, we simply tap into edit mode and press 7 for top view. And we could press G and X and just move it across so that it will be centered. The object itself will be centered. All right, so let me do the last one. The last one, this seems to be there. Let me see, right click. Is this on the floor? No, it's not. So first of all, we need to center this one on the floor. This is interesting. I'm glad this happened so I could show you. We could tap into edit mode, press 3 for face select, click on this, and then press Shift S, cursor to selected. We want the cursor to be here. And then we want to put the origin to the cursor. Right click, set origin to 3D cursor, and press 1 for front view. So now we notice that both the origin and the 3D cursor are not on the 0, axis. So they're a bit below the line. We need to put the 3D cursor first back on the 0, line. So Shift S, cursor to the world origin, and then Shift S, selection to cursor. Good. So we have all our objects there. What you would have noticed as well is that as we were going through the objects, there's some that are much larger than the others. And that's what we're going to address now. So that's the second thing we have to address, the size. Well, while modeling, let me press N to pull out the side menu. You will notice that we were working in meters. I didn't focus too much on that because we wanted to focus on the modeling. However, when we are getting ready to use this in a real world, we have to be able to scale the objects correctly according to the units that we're using. So for example, we're going to be using these props for like colognes and cream tubes, etc. And those objects are approximately 7 to 15 centimeters in height, nothing close to 2 meters. So we want to be working in centimeters. So to do that, we have to configure Blender to work in centimeters. It just takes a few steps, but let me show you. You may even have to refer back to this video if you want to see how to configure Blender for centimeters. I was even thinking of making a separate video for that. Nevertheless, let me show you here. So the first thing you do, you go across here in the properties editor and click on scene properties. Click on that, and under the tab where it says units, so go down to where it says length and change this from meters. Now as I change this, pay attention to these numbers here. Change it from meters to centimeters. Yes, we have changed it from meters to centimeters, but it's still not actually working for us. We need to change the unit scale. So instead of 1, it now needs to be 0.01 in centimeters. And now this is now working for us. Blender is now going to work in centimeters. So this is actually 2 centimeters. And you'll notice it looks very tiny because of the based on the grid that we've seen, but that will cause us some problems. So in order to bring the grid back, so to speak, or to make the grid user friendly too, because we're working in centimeters now, what we need to do is to go up here to the overlays and change the scale of the grid flow also to 0.01. And we notice that we get back the grid flow. So those are the 3 steps. So I'll show you again. We go over here to scene properties, change it from centimeters to centimeters, change the unit scale to 0.01, and lastly, you change the scale up here also to 0.01, and that's it. So now we could be able to scale this correctly. Remember I said that these tube bottles, cream tubes and the colognes, the height of them, they range between 7 to 15 centimeters in height. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to scale them around a ballpark figure. So we want to scale it to just somewhere around 30 centimeters. So we're going to click on this one. If it's far away, we could simply press the period key on the right side of the keyboard to zoom in. All right, that was just a tip. So tap into edit mode, and we want to scale this now, but we want to scale it according to the 3D cursor. If you just press S, if I press 1, you notice that it just raises up. So let's change the pivot point to the 3D cursor. So when I press S, see that? It scales from the 3D cursor. Right now we are set to, if I tab out, 2 centimeters in height in the Z, right? I want to actually scale this object so that the Z together with the other dimensions are larger, but I want the Z to be around 30 centimeters. So let me zoom out a bit, tab into edit mode, and let me scale it up. And let's see, it's 11. We have to do a little bit more, scale a little bit more. 40, scale down a bit more. 32, maybe just around there. All right, so that seems to be fine. And notice we're scaling in edit mode, right? Not in object mode. So we're scaling in edit mode. So this is 1. And while this is still selected, let's select this second one. And we notice it's very small. Now we're using this one as a reference. So tap into edit mode, press A to select everything, and scale this up to match this height roughly. All right, doesn't have to be exact. And we're going to do that for all of the objects. There's one thing I almost forgot to mention as well. Whenever we scale these objects and we have a bevel modifier attached to them, the bevel actually changes depending on the size of the object. So now we have the bevel set at 0.008 in the amount that we bevel it. But if I tab into edit mode and let's say I scale this all the way down, let's say I really scale it small. Now take a look at this bevel. It's a lot softer now at the same 0.008. But when let me undo what I did before. When it was a lot larger, then the bevel, the same 0.008, is now tighter. So you have to factor that. And so a nice bevel at this height, around 29, around 30 centimeters in height, a nice bevel will be 0.2 or maybe even 0.15. And we'll have to do that for the other one. So let me enable this other one. Let me turn off this. And this here, its bevel is tight, 0.15. Yeah, much better. We'll have to do that for all. So instead of doing it one by one, let me show you a trick. We could actually, this trick will work if all of them are enabled, by the way. So I have to enable all of them, select one, and then hold shift and select the last one. So all of them are selected now. And if I press Alt and left click in the bevel modifier of this one, just press Alt and left click and type in 0.15, enter. This should affect all of them because all of them were selected. So if I click on this one, for example, it should also be 0.015 in the bevel. This one should be the same thing in the bevel. All right, so that's a trick. We still have to resize all of them though. All right, so you know how to do that. So I'll leave you to do the rest to resize it. And then we'll come back to see how we could light this and set up our asset browser. All right, so I'll see you in the next one.